I'd like to call this meeting to order. This is the City of Southfield regular meeting of the Planning Commission for November 18th, 2020, conducted via teleconference. I'd like to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Have a roll call, please, Jeff.
Yes, sir. Mr. Culpepper.
Here.
Dr. Stevens-Gunn.
Here.
Mr. Griffiths.
Here.
Mr. Huntington. I am not seeing Mr. Huntington. Mr. Martin.
Present.
Ms. Mia is excused. Mr. Willis.
Here.
Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum to conduct business this evening.
Yes, thank you. May I have a motion to approve the agenda?
If I may, Mr. Chairman, to the commission, just want to make an amend just a little bit to the agenda. We do have a number of items that are going to be postponed, and then one of those items will be dismissed. So in lieu of going through, starting with the public hearing number 1, if we could dispense of those other items first, then we can, whatever public is on the line or whatever petitioner might be on the line can then exit the meeting should they choose, and then we can then go on to contour. So if it would be okay with the commission, just to dispense with the other items first before we go to contour, that would be appreciated.
Okay, is that every other item?
The only item that we will have any further discussion on this evening is contour. All the other items on your agenda will either be postponed, and then one of the items will be dismissed.
Okay, so what's the process for this, though? What do you want us to do first?
All I'm asking is an approval of the agenda, taking care of the other items first before moving on to contour.
Okay,
I got it, Jeremy. I got it.
Go ahead.
To the chair. This is Commissioner Culpepper.
Go ahead, Commissioner Culpepper.
I so move that we amend the agenda and take care, dispense of the items that need to be dispensed of and postpone the one and just do the one with contour for this meeting. Thank you.
Support. This is Commissioner Willis.
Okay, we've got a motion for the amended agenda by Commissioner Culpepper, supported by Commissioner Willis. Do we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Culpepper.
Yes.
Mr. Huntington, again, is not on. Mr. Martin. Mr. Martin?
Point of order. I'd like to know what we're postponing and what we're dismissing so that the agenda can be reflective.
If I may, through the chair, under your public hearings, item number 2 is recommended for postponement. Item number 3 is recommended for postponement. Under site plans, item number 1 is going to be dismissed. And then item number 2 under site plans will be postponed.
To the chair, I'm in agreement with the agenda as modified.
And this is Planner Crowe. Mr. Huntington.
Mr. Huntington, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you. So Jeff Huntington's on. Are we going to postpone to a date certain, Jeff?
Yes, that's correct.
What's the date certain?
Date certain will be your December agenda, and in this case, it would be your December 16th meeting. I will go through each one of these items separately because you need to do each one separately, and I will note what the date certain will be.
Okay, I think that's where the confusion is. It sounded like you asked them to amend everything at one time. All right. Is everybody clear for now? Mr. Spence is going to go through the items individually prior to us talking about contour.
Agree?
Okay, so I, from a roll call vote, have had Mr. Culpepper and Mr. Martin. Dr. Stevens-Gunn,
Agreed.
Mr. Willis,
Agreed.
Mr. Huntington,
Agree.
and Mr. Griffith.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Any other announcements or communications?
None other at this time.
This case, we're heading to the first item then, the contour development item. Is that correct?
What we'll do is we will postpone or dismiss the remaining items on your agenda, and then we'll go to contour. So
Okay.
item number 2 on your agenda, PZR 20-0004, the proposed rezoning request for the 0.999 acres on Dufty. The planning department is recommending postponement to your December agenda. That would be the December 16th, 2020 meeting. We would have a study meeting on December 2nd, and then again, the regular meeting on the 16th.
To the
So
chair,
I do need a motion and then a second and a vote.
this is Commissioner Culpepper.
Go ahead, Commissioner Culpepper.
I move that we postpone PZR 20-0004 to a date certain, which will be our December 16th meeting, 2020.
Second. This is Martin, second.
Okay, we've got a motion by Commissioner Culpepper, supported by Commissioner Martin. Have a roll call vote to postpone this item.
Yes. Mr. Martin,
Yes.
Dr. Stevens-Gunn,
Agreed.
Mr. Willis,
Support.
Mr. Culpepper,
Support.
Mr. Huntington,
Support.
Mr. Griffith.
Yes.
All right, thank you. The next item is PSP 20-0013. This is the site plan review request for the same petitioner that we just discussed, the rezoning request. Again, the request from the planning department is to postpone PSP 20-0013 to a date certain. That would be the regular meeting of December 16th, 2020. This would also come to your study meeting on December 2nd.
To the chair, this is Commissioner Martin.
Go ahead, Commissioner Martin.
I'd like to recommend PSP 20-0013 postponed to a date certain, December 2nd.
Support.
If I may, through the chair, it's December 16th. That's the regular meeting date.
Sorry, December 16th.
Support.
We've got a motion by Commissioner Martin, supported by Commissioner Culpepper. Have a roll call vote, please.
Yes, sir. Mr. Willis,
Support.
Mr. Culpepper,
Support.
Mr. Huntington,
Support.
Mr. Martin,
Support.
Dr. Stevens-Gunn,
Support.
and Mr. Griffith.
Yes.
Thank you. Next item, PSP 20-0009. This is the site plan review request of ZA Design Build for 29444 Northwestern Highway. If you recall, we've had numerous discussions on this property. Eventually, what ended up coming of this site was that the deck that they're proposing, because it is no longer in the setback and no longer needs a ZBA waiver, we can now do administratively. So staff is recommending that this case be dismissed without prejudice. Again, we would need a second or a motion and a second just to dismiss the case.
To the Chair, Commissioner Martin, I'd like to propose that PSP 20-0009 be dismissed.
Support. Commissioner Willis.
Okay, we've got a motion by Commissioner Martin, supported by Commissioner Willis, to dismiss PSP 20-0009. We have a roll call vote, please.
Yes, thank you. Dr. Stevens Gunn,
Support.
Mr. Willis,
Support.
Mr. Culpepper,
Support.
Mr. Huntington,
Support.
Mr. Martin,
Support.
Mr. Griffith.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And the last item here, oops, I'm sorry. The last item, PSLU 20-0011. This is a special use request of Southfield Industrial Park. This is the property on the west side of Telegraph Road, just north of 8 Mile. Again, staff is recommending a postponement of this item to a date certain, that being your December 16th, 2020 regular meeting.
To the chair.
Go ahead, Commissioner Culpepper.
I motion that we postpone PSLU 20-0011 to December the 16th, 2020 meeting.
Commissioner Martin, support.
Thank you. We have a motion by Commissioner Culpepper, supported by Commissioner Martin. We have a roll call vote.
Yep. Dr. Stevens Gunn,
Support.
Mr. Willis,
Support.
Mr. Culpepper,
Support.
Mr. Huntington,
Support.
Mr. Martin,
Support.
and Mr. Griffith.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. That takes care of all the other items on the agenda that were either under public hearings or site plans. So now we can move on to PZR ODD 20-0001. So this is the rezoning with an overlay development district request of contour development on behalf of the owner of the city of Southfield. So this is for the Northland site. The proposal is to amend the Northland sub-area redevelopment plan overlay development district to allow for mixed-use development, as well as approval for the phase 2 development for the project. Obviously, this has been before you a number of times before. You did have a public hearing on this particular item in October. However, we made no recommendation at that time and wanted to give the petitioner Contour the opportunity to put together the ODD agreement and the development agreement, which they have done, and they provided that to the city. I did make a copy of that available to you later on this evening. And with that, I don't know if Mr. Crote has any additional comments. Otherwise, we have representatives of Contour Development here this evening to kind of do another overview of the project.
Yes, thanks, Mr. Spence. This is Planner Crowe. I'm going to ask Bruce just to give a very quick high-level recap of your project, and then we'll talk a little bit about the ODD agreement and some of the parameters. The Planning Commission has been provided with the draft copy. So if you just ask to next slide, Bruce, and we can go through this quickly.
Of course. Thank you very much, Terry. And I'd like to thank the Planning Commission members for allowing me to be present and talk about this project. I feel a little bit like the thunder's been stolen since the press release went out on Sunday and it appeared in various media outlets there. So just to recap really what we're doing, Contour was asked by the mayor to take a look at 11 acres along Greenfield and propose an apartment development there. Once we got into that and started to have a vision for this property, we went to a 34-acre project, and then the mayor suggested that maybe we'd be interested in the whole project. So at that time, we took a good look and stock at what there was there. Obviously, Northland is a landmark, I think, architecturally in its original form. It certainly has historic value. And what we propose is to essentially build 5- and 6-story apartment buildings with retail on the ground floor, in some cases certainly along Greenfield, on that property that fit the design of the original Northland. So we create a cohesive community there. We introduce new roadways into the property. Our phase 1 consists of about 1,295 apartment units in these 5-story buildings with balconies that you see. You can also see the retail on the ground floor, which would really give us what we're looking for, is that a person who lived here could just go downstairs to the pub or downstairs and get their hair cut or something like that. And then we would remodel the shopping center in order to convert the big J.L. Hudson store into a project that was very similar to the Ponce City Market. You have pictures of it there in Atlanta, which is a very exciting development of I believe, a 1928 Sears warehouse and store into loft apartments and a food, entertainment, and home furnishings based sort of retail center that we feel, based on the way this project has changed the neighborhood in Atlanta, where it's located, that our Hudson City Market would do the same. The remainder of the shopping center would be brought back to an outdoor environment with landscaped courtyards, as it once had. And the ground floor would be a mixture of loft apartments. And we're also looking at inserting maybe a corner Starbucks, a corner diner, and that sort of thing in there, while really restoring the look of the Northland that it had when it was so popular when it first opened. And I understand that back in 1954, and I can remember when stores were not even open on Sundays, that Northland was still crowded because people went there to enjoy that outdoor area and the way it was set up, like a very nice little urban environment. We're going to add to that, in terms of those apartments on the perimeter, a whole population that will be able to keep the retail here fresh and going, along with the fact that we feel, because of the size of it, it's a destination. It will draw people from all over the area. It's a wonderful location, close to downtown. You can see in that slide that we're looking at developing the lower level parking lot as a green space, and with some ponds, an amphitheater, and some townhouse development there in phase 2. Speak briefly about phase 2, which is essentially most of the white space on this slide. That you'll see that it's blank because we don't know exactly what we're going to do there. We feel we could build the same sort of apartment buildings around the shopping center. You can see the shopping center in the middle there. The 3 blocks of apartment buildings along Greenfield, but those blank areas, we could entertain a hotel, senior living, 55 and up living, and a variety of things like that, and maybe more apartments as well in there. We don't know what the market is going to bring here after we get the first phase done. But you can be assured that it would be the same level of quality that we're looking at putting into this project, and designed such that we really want to put this thing on the map and really want to have a new Northland that's not the decrepit, vacant shopping center that it is now, but a very lively place that everybody in Southfield can be proud of. I realize that I wasn't calling for this slide or that, but you follow me very well, Terry. Again, there's some pictures of what our vision is for the interior courts of those malls. If you go back to the photographs from the 1950s, they look very much like that. And that's our intent, to do really a historic restoration of the shopping center, repurpose it somewhat, but like the French say, the more it changes, the more it stays the same, really.
Are you good with your summary, Bruce?
I believe so. I mean, you have the slide up right now that we've we have been working on this since March, and I can tell you that Contour has an awful lot of time and money invested in the plan. So we've commissioned a landscape plan, which is shown there. We're working, like Terry said, on the ODD development. We're engaging engineers, hiring staff, and getting ready to really pull this thing ahead.
So if I may be permitted through the chair, Bruce and I did have about a 45-minute discussion reviewing the parameters of the ODD agreement. But for the edification of the public and the commission, I'm going to ask Bruce to respond to a few key points, if that's okay with you, before you go to planning commission comments.
Okay with me.
So is that okay, Mr. Chair? All right. So Bruce, this is a very ambitious plan, and we'd love to see it all come to fruition right away. But we know that development and other circumstances might prevent it. One of the comments that I shared with you is I thought that the phasing plan that you had was very aggressive, and recommended that you spread out the phasing over multiple phases, of which you need to discuss with the developer and others of your team. But this is something that we'd like to have finalized prior to council's action. But if you want to speak on the phasing a little bit.
Yes, our current phasing plan is to it's really divided into three phases. We have a 1A, a 1B, and then a phase 2. 1A would be buildings A, B, F, G, and J and K along Greenfield Road. So those would go up first, and quite frankly, we would build buildings A and B first, and then move along down Greenfield toward Northland Drive. And at the same time we're doing that, we're going to clean up and demolish the parts of the shopping center that were added after the original mall existed for several years. There was, the enclosure of the 1970s, additional big box retail from the 1990s. And we're going to get rid of that and at least show that there's some work going on in the mall during the construction of those 6 apartment buildings. Phase 1B would include then rebuilding that mall area and getting it ready for tenants while we build buildings C, D, and E, H, I, L, M, and N, which are the ones that come closest to the shopping center there. And so what we create is really parking that is more or less shielded from view. So we don't have the big parking lots. Of course, they're going to be landscaped anyway. By the time those first two phases, 1A and 1B are done. And once we have that all rolling, we'll have the shopping center and the lofts around it up and operating as well. We'll move on to our phase 2 development.
Okay. One of the other issues we discussed was uses. Your modified, updated plans say all uses permitted as outlined in the ODD ordinance, excluding medical marijuana facilities. So we just wanted to let the commission and the public know that there will be no, under their portion of the plan, no medical marijuana facilities. I would also ask, Bruce, that you go back to your team and consider one more exception. At one point, we had added auto dealership that was going to be on the Hudson, I think it was the Hudson's Drive out parcel, when we had 5 different developers at play. And I don't think that the auto dealership fits in with your concept plan. So I'd ask you to consider excluding auto dealerships with medical marijuana. You don't have to give us.
I wholeheartedly agree with you, Terry.
Okay.
And I'm sure David does as well. That's really, we do not want to have big box retail here. We don't want to have big box car dealership either, and more parking lots and that kind of thing. So I'm almost certain that that's our direction as well. In fact, if you could possibly send me a list of uses, I don't know that I have that handy for myself on my computer. If you could possibly email that to me at some point.
Yes.
I'll go through and even if necessary to list all those uses in the ODD arrangement, I'm not opposed to that either.
Okay, because you and I had talked about, possibly you could get a high-rise hotel, or you could get those would be acceptable. But your very first list only had 3 uses: residential, commercial, and retail.
Recreation, hotel.
I don't even think recreation was listed there. So the point is, I think this is good that you're referring to the ODD permitted uses. You should go through that list and exclude ones that you really don't want to see there.
Yeah, there may be some things that we don't care for either. With the overriding idea is that we want to turn this into sort of a center, a neighborhood type of thing, and anything that really wouldn't fit that, we wind up excluding for the most part.
Right. And while we're on uses, and recreational uses would be permitted, I know that the Planning Commission members have previously brought up the need or the idea of a tot lot, the need or the idea of a dog park. Now, both of those would come under the umbrella of recreational uses, but if you're comfortable, we wouldn't mind you calling that out under the either the I think there's urban open space or one of those categories in the ODD agreement.
Sure.
Can you speak a little bit about what your plans are for the water tower and the powerhouse?
We are working with both. We've engaged with DTE to do a preliminary study on this property, along with we're right at the verge of signing a contract with mechanical, electrical, and plumbing engineers to be our partner in the project. And we have looked closely at the powerhouse building. We're pretty sure that the electrical equipment in there has to remain. The western portion of that building is just a garage, and I think we might find a new use for that. But certainly the boiler house, which is the biggest part of that, has a very high ceiling, and we think it lends itself to become the clubhouse for the whole development in general, or if nothing else, a recreational facility with exercise rooms and all that sort of thing.
Or microbrew, right?
If they could use those boilers to make their beer, I guess that would be a plus. But so we do want to reuse that. I think it's a pretty significant mid-century modern building in Northland, and we are committed also to making sure that the water tower is in good shape and able to stay there as long as this development does, and we'll likely reinstall the Northland Arrow logo signs on the 4 sides of it, and proceed from there and continue to use that as a landmark for the development.
Yeah, I think that was one of the desires of everybody. I have two or three other ones real quick. You want to speak to green infrastructure, and we're not going to see this at this level plans, but want to talk about how you might address green infrastructure throughout the development?
Well, Terry, I think it's a natural for a company like Contour. This project is being done as a long-term investment that the company is going to hold. We don't see selling it off. It's meant to be an asset for Contour over a long number of years. Even when I started here, they talked about this is something that we want to build for our kids and grandkids in the future, that they have this as an investment. So they certainly will be looking for the best, most efficient, most green ways of constructing this that are feasible with the development in order to carry it forward through those years. It would be very foolish for Contour to put in inefficient systems in that way. So we will look at all that. In the past, maybe I'm letting too much of a cat out of the bag, but in the past, I've seen clients that asked me as an architect and other jobs can we get a green building certification? And the problem is that is so expensive, it goes right out of court. But my point about that was that you can always do the things that you can do to make the building green and as efficient and as carbon neutral as possible. You may not have the propellers on the roof and things like that, but we're certainly going to take advantage of the good things that kind of green infrastructure brings.
Yeah, and I don't think anyone's asking for green certified, but some of the points that you talked about, the fact that you're salvaging buildings saves debris from going in a landfill and is repurposed, adaptive reuse. Other things we talked about is where possible, permeable pavers, bioswales, green roofs, those types of things. And I know that we're at a high level right now, but I know that our master plan, our zoning ordinance, our commission, and our council are in favor of those items.
Well, we certainly, last week we toured that Ponce City Market in Atlanta. There's a very large green roof there, and we looked at it, and David asked, like, what would happen in the winter? What does it do? What is it? And I've got some understanding of that. So we're certainly at least tossing those things around, and I can assure you we're going to pursue as much of them as we can.
There was a desire that some of the Northland art be returned to this development. I think the mayor or myself pointed out three pieces, as well as some new stuff or found stuff. You want to talk a little bit about some of your plans with art?
Yes, and certainly being that we see this as a historic restoration of the Northland buildings, and we have entered into conversations this week with the State Historical Commission about getting it registered as a historic landmark. We would like to return art to those courtyards in the way that it existed. Some of it was art on the walls, and some was freestanding art. Some were kinetic art with fountains, and we'd like to see that back in place. If we could get the same pieces of art back from storage, wherever they are, if it's possible, there are certain things like Boy and Bear that are so iconic to Northland. I would think we might even commission a copy in that case, just to set it in its historical context, or some new art that would be significant for going forward as well for that. So, and obviously any, I'm actually writing a book right now about the history of the J.L. Hudson Company. So I've done extensive research prior to coming to Contour on the gestation of Northland and how this all came about. And I think the art was almost inseparable from the architecture. And I grew up on the east side, and Eastland was the same way. In fact, when my brother saw the article in Cranes, he asked me, he said, well, I remember this at Eastland, and I remember the hippo, and I remember all that. And so it's very iconic, and we're gonna make a big effort to get what we can back, either commission new works that are in a similar vein, or do what we can to get it looking like it did in 1954 with regard to that artwork. I would also add that another element of the artwork, I think, was the graphic design used throughout the site in terms of signage. And in our renderings, you can see that we've taken an adaptation of the original Northland Monument sign and redesigned it and repositioned it along a Greenfield Road there. And that was a design by a graphic designer named Alvin Lustig, who was famous enough to have several books about him on Amazon. And I ordered one of those today so I can just get a better feel. And when we were down at Ponce City Market, I remarked that some of their signage was very, very similar to what was once at Northland. So we want to play off of all those things in every aspect of this, not just sculptures, but in terms of the graphics and the whole sense of the place. That it speaks to Southfield, and this being a unique place on the map.
We have at least 3 substantial pieces still in our possession that haven't been placed in other locations. So I'll send you some information on that. And then whether or not this gets official historic designation as a site, we encourage possibly working with us on installing a couple of historic interpretive panels that could show some old photos and talk about the history that can be located throughout the development. And finally, I know Mr. Aceves is on from the DDA, and he may want to make a few comments through the chair before we open it up to Planning Commission. So if Al is available, you want to weigh in a little bit, Al?
can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, so to the commission, as I have previously stated, we continue to work through a number of aspects of the deal and trying to get everything closed relatively quickly. There is a concerted effort by the city as well as the Contour team to try and meet those timeframes. From the DDA standpoint, I previously mentioned that our board is strongly behind this development, and we hope to see it go forward. This morning, the Northland Committee met to discuss various elements of it, and we are moving forward with those that we have control over. But in order to get to the end game, there's certainly going to be more discussion between the Contour team and the city on various aspects. But again, I believe everybody is very excited about the deal, and I know that the public relations that appeared Sunday, Monday has drawn a lot of phone calls, not only to my office, but to various other people at the city expressing support and excitement as well. Thank you.
And with that, Mr. Chair, I'll be happy to answer any questions that the Planning Commission may have at this point.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, any questions or comments?
To the chair, Commissioner Culpepper.
Go ahead.
I just want to say I'm ecstatic about this proposal. And like I said previously, I'm so glad that you started along the Greenfield area, because by doing 1A and 1 and 1A, people will really now get a chance to see that there is activity going on. And as Al said, once this thing hit the media, they're inquisitive. So by having that first phase along Greenfield, it definitely going to speak volume. In the meantime, you're cleaning up the area in the rear to make it feasible. So I'm ecstatic. And again, in a previous presentation, I asked about the water tower, because that water tower is like a stalwart pillar in Northland. So I'm glad that you're keeping that and doing something with that. So overall, I'm ecstatic about this. But Terry, I don't know if this is the right time, but I got one question for you. I know in previous discussions, there have been other people that have talked about what will not go in that building, in that zone. We had once talked about having a black dealership want to go there. So I just want you to keep it in the back of your mind. I will be just up sometime later about not knowing exactly what that black dealership did, but I remember we wanted to try to get a black dealership in there. Knowing that the black dealership is not part of this project, I just want to keep that in the forefront. But
that was an accommodation that we were working on when we had 5 separate developers, and we were trying to attract a minority dealership there, and we added that as a potential use in the Northland area. But I don't believe that's compatible with the vision and the walkability that Contour is trying to do.
yes, I concur.
Yeah, so I asked them to exclude dealerships from their proposal. That doesn't mean it can't happen in other areas within the DDA.
Okay, that's what I'm saying. Okay, thank you very much, Chair. Thank you. Good presentation. I'm ecstatic. Can't wait. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is Commissioner Rob Willis. I have a couple of questions. The first is, we refer to this as the Northland Project or the Contour Development. Do you have any idea what you're going to call this?
We do have a name. We want to keep the Northland name, so it's going to be called Northland City Center.
Okay.
And we have a name for the Hudson's department store that'll be redesigned for continued retail use, and that we're calling that the Hudson City Market. And we have registered those names currently.
Thank you. Secondly, Northland, when it was still an active shopping center, would do outreach within the community. They had events where school kids would wind up in the school. They became an extension of library events. He had other kinds of community outreach with nonprofit organizations, sometimes with government organizations. Do you anticipate that as being part of your business plan, or do you see that as something that's necessary at all?
Yes, we do. We have been involved in a number of projects, looking at some things in other parts of the country. And we realized that to draw people to this type of a space, especially those malls that are exterior lanes and squares, that developments like this do have a lot of outdoor concerts. They have tournaments for, the corn bag toss, different things every month to draw people. And once we would get the buildings in a state where, they can be put to use, we'll have in place a PR department and management that will direct that kind of community outreach and event scheduling within the developments, so that we do have exciting things going on to draw people. We have to fill those 800 spaces that are in the tunnels, that are going to be in the tunnels now. So also I would direct your attention, it's a part of phase 2, but when we convert that sunken parking lot into something more of a green space with some townhouse development around it, overlooking it and around it, we have space in there for an amphitheater that can be used for concerts, presentations, and things like that in good weather. So it is our desire to have a lot of those things. And certainly the dog park, the tot lot kind of thing, will all come together and help make this the destination that we see.
Bruce, if I could, Mr. Willis and Bruce, that was always our intent, that the area around the pond, even though it's a privately developed, that the DDA and Parks and Rec could possibly partner with your development company to host and plan events there as well.
We'd be open to that for sure.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
This is Carolyn Stevens again, and I have a question.
Go ahead.
Yes.
Okay, I'm very, very excited about about the plans. I guess I'd like to know what the timeline is for the phases. When would you get started, and when would you move that big mound of dirt?
Well, the mounded dirt will be partially used to create that cascading pond. So there will be a different kind of slope down to the lower level in that area. I think there's probably more dirt there than we need for the whole project. We've identified one area where we probably have to replace some dirt that might have been contaminated from one of the previous auto centers that was on the site. But our intention is to just get rid of the rest of it, whether through sale or offering anybody that wants fill. We have to test if it's clean or not. That we would get rid of it that way. I think that would probably be concurrent with our phasing of the Greenfield area, the Greenfield frontage there. I think we're looking at hopefully starting those buildings A and B next spring. And there's probably a year's construction time. So the apartments in those buildings would come online in 2022. And we would move down the street. As we got one completed, we start another one down there. So we would march down Greenfield Road there and complete those buildings. And that would probably take a couple of years to get them all up in that manner.
When would the Hudson's Marketplace be part of that process?
Those 6 buildings along Greenfield would be our first, really our phase 1A. And in the marketplace, or in the Northland Shopping Center that has the Hudson City Market in it, we would, during phase 1A, we would be doing demolition and preparation for construction on that portion. And by the time we started, those buildings were done in the front, we'd start construction on remodeling the buildings then. So that would probably come online, 2023. I mean, I'm guessing, I can't really be sure right now. We don't have an official schedule, but before, I think even before we have the ODD in place, we should have an in-house schedule that will show those things. We know that that center is, the center portion of that is a real draw. We also know that bringing a population to this site that will patronize retail and green space and all that, people, the project, is important. So we're juggling those two things at once because there's a fair amount of demolition and reconstruction that has to be done on that shopping center to get it back to the jewel that it once was.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, through the chair, Commissioner Huntington.
Go ahead, Commissioner Honey.
I just had a statement to make. First of all, I think the phasing is good, the way they have it laid out. I like the way it's phased out. And I do agree with the exclusions, the car dealerships, the big box stores, and of course the marijuana facilities. I think that was a good idea. Did have a question about as far as the apartments. Are all the apartments on the same, pretty much the same level as far as quality and pricing, or do you have some more upscale units and some lower scale units?
Right now, these are all basically of the same quality. There will also be some lofts in the one-story portions of the shopping center that will come online in the phase 1B that are of a different nature because they'll have a very high unfinished ceiling. But these apartments are mostly, I guess for want of a better word, I would say it's sort of a mid-range type of apartment that would be appropriate for workforce housing and what the kind of apartments we've had success with in our other developments.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Commissioner Martin, any comment?
Yeah. Yes, I like this development. I'd like to see it done next year, but I know it takes time. You talk about having additional underground parking. Did I hear that correctly?
Correct. Right now, underneath the whole Northland Shopping Center are retail spaces that were used as stock rooms. There are loading docks, and there's 3 points of access to that lower level. So we will get rid of all the actual stock rooms and everything on that lower level and convert that to an 800 space parking garage. The lowest level of the Hudson store will take on that retail. Partially, we can do partial parking there. We have some loading docks in there, and then it's going to stretch out under the terrace and lead to that depressed parking lot area where we show the park, the green space, so that that retail area can spill out onto that as well. By retail, we would have fast casual restaurants, boutiques, and that sort of thing, such as are in Atlanta at that project I showed. But we think it's really important to have some access out to that green space. But really, underneath all those other wings that you see, they're colored in a lighter brown color. We'll put parking garage, and we'll be constructing some new elevator and stairway structures to get so that people can get up from the parking deck into the retail area. And those will go to serve also the residents of the loft apartments as well.
Okay. Once again, I think it's a lovely rebirth for Northland, and I think you're doing an excellent job. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I've said before, this is a really exciting project. I really like the approach of the historic preservation plus the new construction, which can actually hopefully be built a little bit easier than saving some of these existing buildings and a lot of the renovation that's going to happen, and really getting the amount of people on site that you're going to need to be successful. I think it's a smart mix I think it's a realistic mix to make this project a success. So just really excited for it and can't wait to see this start moving, coming out of the ground. I think it's going to be very cool.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm really, I feel really blessed to be working for a company that had the same vision as I did for this site. And when they asked me, hey, what, you know anything about Northland? And I said, I was only working here for about 2 months. And I said, boy, have you got the right person? So it's been a real nice way for me to use some of the knowledge that I've researched over the last couple of years and to tie that to the vision that Contour has for this place as a lively, desirable, innovative thing. They look all over for properties all over the country. And they see a lot of things that we don't necessarily do in Detroit, but are really, really successful. So they have a vision for this that I think is based on a very wide knowledge and understanding of the housing market and how to drive people to our projects. So it's just a wonderful combination, I think, of a developer with a vision and a piece of property that needs some tender loving care.
I'll echo that. It's refreshing to work with an architect who's as passionate about this project as Bruce is. I've worked with a lot of good architects, but it's always good when someone has the same upbeat, a passion for a project that we do. So kudos to you, Bruce, and we all want this to be successful. We're all excited about it. As Mr. Martin or someone said, when's the shovel going to hit the ground? But we also have known over the last 4 years that there are a lot of obstacles and challenges and changing situations. 2020 was clear to us how different things can be. But hopefully we're moving forward. And with that, Mr. Chair, in general, I'm in favor of making a recommendation to move this to City Council. I know Mr. Spence will read into the record our official recommendation, but I'm comfortable after these long months and some back and forth recently that we're in a good enough position to make a recommendation to move this forward.
To the
Okay,
chair,
thank you.
Commissioner Martin. I have one
Go ahead,
last
Commissioner
question.
Martin. Sure.
I know that the development is geared primarily to the young beginning families and younger workers, but have you considered any of the buildings being for seniors or older adults? I guess I'd say focusing on older adults rather than the younger age that basically the area is looking at.
I can answer that. I would say, being an older adult myself, I don't want to be excluded from anywhere that I find would be a nice place to live. But I think our apartments probably would work very well. And we're not at the moment. We didn't have a component of that kind of senior living or 55 plus. But I can tell you that one of our financing partners that we've been talking to grew up within a mile of Northland and is extremely excited. In fact, I mean, we made this presentation to him, and he was saying, yes, when we do this and when we get it. So I think he kind of just over the phone or over the Zoom meeting, more or less signed his name on the dotted line. But he is a very big developer of senior facilities. So one of the things he said was, yeah, we got to get something for the older population in phase 2 there. So that's coming. And right now, I think that these apartments are going to have decent amenities. It's going to be very nice, let's say, to be able to live in an apartment and go downstairs and meet somebody for coffee or take a walk. The whole site will be walkable. So as you know, that's one of our older people's favorite methods of exercise is walking. So they already have that. And they potentially could have, if they live in the first phase, maybe, or phase 1B, would have the benefit of being around a variety of different people as opposed to just closed off into a facility where I went through this with my own parents and family a lot, where we tried really hard not to just close them off somewhere, even that they were not that active. So I think there are some benefits to having that type of a facility here. And I could see it, right up against the shopping center and any of the phase 2 parcels. And with this potential financial partner coming on board, it's almost a done deal, because that's what he specializes in.
Last but not least, in your Atlanta facility, the Sears that you redid there, did you have any chain restaurants or stores that had a major interest in it and took up residence within the facility? Do you see that being something that would take place here at Northland?
So I just want to state that project is not our project. It's a project that we're familiar with, and a different company did that. So we're using that as a prototype for what we're doing. And I actually was in there last week. I flew down to Atlanta to take a look at it, and we noted some of the tenants that are in there. But it seemed to me that most of the restaurants were more unique and local in character. And I think we while we wouldn't turn away a chain restaurant, I think we would certainly want to encourage some of the more unique type of restaurant options that could develop in a place like this, because Detroit's becoming known as a little bit of a foodie town. And I'm trying to think if there really wasn't, we had lunch there, and there really wasn't, there were some chain stores. There was a Lululemon, there was 9 Elm, there was the other chain store that I saw in there, Williams Sonoma. But as far as the restaurants go, they were all very unique and different, I would say. And I think that's something we'd like to encourage here. One of the nice things about the facility is it seemed to me that a young entrepreneur that wanted to open a restaurant, what a lot of these were was what we would call fast casual, where you would walk up to a counter, and I'm not saying they wouldn't have waitress service, but there was open seating, and that person who would like to start up a restaurant doesn't have to rent 12,000 square feet to get in on a project like this. They just have to have their kitchen and their staff, and they can let the traffic help them, the traffic that's in the building on that site. Like I said, I'm sure that we would not turn away a chain restaurant tenant for this project at all. We'd entertain it, but I think we want to also have that focus on the people in the area that want to start businesses, or they have a flair for the food service, or anything else that would really fit in that building. The thing is, we don't know right now at this early stage of the game, just as Terry said, and I agree wholeheartedly that I'm looking at this from 37,500 feet still. And it's not until we get down into individual buildings, and then we get really get our marketing team in place to start a broker that will understand this kind of project and start bringing in the potential tenants for us. There, we have turned down a big box offer that said, "Hey, give us 10 acres of this property, and we'll put our big box there." But we don't want to do that.
Thank you. I understand. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
I think we're ready for the recommendation, Jeff.
Yes, sir. So with regard to PZR ODD 20-0001, the Planning Department does recommend favorable consideration to amend the existing ODD agreement for the Northland Subarea Redevelopment Plan Overlay Development District to allow a master development plan for mixed-use development and Phase 1 development, as well as the installation of required landscape elements and plazas along Greenfield Road on 78.12 acres of land with underlying RS Regional Shopping Zoning District for the following reasons. Proposal will be consistent with the surrounding zoning classifications and is in accordance with the Southfield Comprehensive Master Plan that indicates Cornerstone Development Authority subarea for this parcel, and is consistent with the Northland Design Standards and Guidelines. Proposal utilizing the Northland Sub-Area Redevelopment Plan, ODD, Overlay Development District provisions with underlying RS regional shopping zoning will allow the petitioner to market the properties for redevelopment with mixed-use land uses compatible with abutting existing developments, and will allow for development flexibility in accordance with the attached amended ODD development agreement. Proposed rezoning will not have adverse effects upon adjoining zonings or land uses, and the petitioners will work with the planning department to finalize the amended Northland Overlay Development District Development Agreement, including inclusion of pieces of art from the Northland collection that have been restored and reinstalled as part of the proposed development. With that, that is the planning department's recommendation.
Jeff, this is Al. I have a quick question, if I may. Your reference to the Cornerstone Development Authority, I'm assuming that's the DDA?
Yes, it is, sir.
Could you change the name from Cornerstone to our actually reflect what our current name is, the Southfield Downtown Development Authority?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, with that, yeah, I have no problem with the change to Southfield Downtown Development Authority.
And if I could, through the chair, to clarify to Al, back when the master plan was adopted in 2016, I believe that was the name that we referenced as the sub area. So that's where the confusion.
Understand. Thank you.
To the chair,
Go ahead, Commissioner Culpepper.
I recommend favorable approval for PZR 0DD 20-001 with the necessary changes as just mentioned by the overlay development.
Support,
Chair,
Commissioner
this is
Huntington.
Rob Willis, support.
Okay, we've got a favorable motion by Commissioner Culpepper, supported by Commissioner Huntington. Have a roll call vote, please.
Yes, sir. Mr. Huntington,
Yes.
Mr. Martin,
Yes.
Dr. Stevens-Gunn,
Yes,
Mr. Willis,
Yes,
Mr. Culpepper,
Yes,
and Mr. Griffith.
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, you do have a favorable recommendation for PZR ODD 20-0001.
Thank you, Bruce, and thank you to the commission. And Bruce, you and I will kind of sharpen the pencils and fine tune the agreement as we move forward. I will send you the list of uses as well as some additional information on items that were discussed tonight.
Perfect. And Terry, thank you for your very kind notes about the words about the development and working with Contour. Thank you very much.
Terry,
Thank you, Planning Commission members and Chairman, for kind of joining us in this adventure. It's going to be a good one. Yeah.
Mr. Culpepper, before I respond, Al, did you have anything else you wanted to say?
No, thank you, Terry. I'm fine.
Okay, Mr. Culpepper.
Terry, I think you mentioned that you would send Bruce a list of potential artwork that may be available.
Yes, we have an inventory and we have some photos.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, but some of the ones that he mentioned, we already have them set up, so, okay. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Okay. Next, we have the approval of the minutes from October 21st and October 28th.
To the chair, Commissioner Martin, I'd like to recommend approval of the minutes to the 2 meetings just mentioned by the chairman.
Support.
I turned the page and forgot the names of the dates on them.
Support.
Okay, we got a favorable recommendation by Commissioner Martin, supported by Commissioner Culpepper. Have a roll call vote?
Yes, sir. Mr. Culpepper,
Yes.
Mr. Huntington,
Yes.
Mr. Martin,
Yes.
Dr. Stevens Gunn,
Yes.
Mr. Willis,
Yes.
Mr. Griffith.
Yes. All
Okay,
right.
sir, you do have approval of your minutes?
Excellent. Now we have the public comment portion of the meeting.
Yes, thank you. So for the public who is interested, this is the moment in the meeting in which we allow public comment. The number is up on the screen to call in through WebEx. That phone number 1-415-655-0001. And then when prompted, put in the event number 173-518-1150. Mr. Chairman, as you're aware, because of the delay between this particular meeting that's live and then what's shown on cable, we would at least like to at least give a couple of minutes for public to call in. And if after a couple of minutes, if I do have some folks online, then we'll bring them into the meeting. Otherwise, we can close that portion. But if we can wait a couple of minutes here, sir, and then I'll follow up with you shortly.
That sounds good, Jeff. Thank you.
I'll just use this brief moment to remind the commission if you're available tomorrow night, we are having a virtual town hall meeting with artist Hubert Massey to discuss the mosaic triptych panels along the Lawrence Tech pathway. And we'd ask you to RSVP to Kyle Bryce so that we can send you specific instructions on how to access that Zoom meeting. I know some of you have responded. You should have received the invite, but if you're still interested, you can respond tomorrow.
Terry, I'd like to
Yes.
ask you a question. Do you use Nextdoor for any advertising?
No.
Only because that goes to a lot of residents in Southfield area.
Yeah, I'm smiling because I've been on the other end of Nextdoor when when the neighborhood gets riled up.
Yeah. Well, I put an invitation out there on Nextdoor, and I actually put a notice for the riled up people, telling them that the planning department had nothing to do with who rents what.
Right.
So, I also attended the meeting on that, and the owner, I think, did a good job in explaining to the people his problems and what it is. But yes, it's just another way of communicating to a larger audience faster. And to see the mayor sent out notice also. So
That's good. So 2 other quick updates. As you know, we did put a moratorium in place for 6 months on small box retail. And then last Monday, 2 days ago, council approved the zoning text amendment for mobile MRIs.
jolly good.
Terry,
Yes.
I was gonna wait, but while you at it, you want to make the other announcement about what happened at the city council meeting Friday, Monday, with the new president pro tem.
Hi.
That we changed, elected new president and vice president since you.
Yes. So Miss Lenny Taylor is the new council president, and Mr. Ari Mandelbaum is the new council president pro tem.
Thanks, Terry.
Yep.
Okay.
Mr. Spence.
Mr. Chairman, we have no public who called in for the public comment portion.
Okay, thank you. We'll close the public comment portion of the meeting at this time then. Any other miscellaneous business?
if I may, you do have 2 meetings in December, or actually 3 meetings, December 2nd, the 9th, and the 16th. So we will have one additional item. It's a rezoning request for the December 2nd meeting, along with the items that were postponed this evening. So again, December 2nd would be your next study meeting.
Right.
Thank you.
Other than that, we just wish you all a happy Thanksgiving.
And it's same to you, Jeff. You and Terry.
Yeah. Hey,
Definitely.
happy, safe.
Thank you.
And to all of the commissioners, stay safe.
Don't visit
Definitely.
anybody.
Thank you.
All right.
Same here. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
And good night. So long.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Meeting
Okay.
adjourned.
Take care, Jeremy.